Buddy the Elf Donuts, the Murder Burger, and Gabagool. This week, it's Rhode Island Food Crawls.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, we're exploring food crawls in Rhode Island with author Jamie Coelho. But first, if you could, take a moment, rate and review Destination Eat Drink on your podcast app. It takes just a moment, and it really helps other foodie travelers like yourself find the show. You can also support Destination Eat Drink at buymeacoffee.com. That's where you can make a one-time or recurring contribution in any amount, or download one of my foodie travel guide ebooks. Recently, I published my Malta foodie travel guide, and I've got several Italy foodie travel guides coming up soon. Check them all out at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink, and thank you very much. Jamie Coelho is the editor-in-chief at the terrific magazine Rhode Island Monthly. She's also an author who's been published in Boston Globe and Yankee magazines. Her new book is called Rhode Island Food Crawls, Touring the Neighborhoods One Bite and Libation at a Time, which is available at globepequot.com or wherever you get books. Jamie tells me what makes a good food crawl and gives us so many great recommendations. Plus, we talk about the best topping for Johnny Cakes, a Dark and Stormy in Newport, and Rhode Island's Little Italy. Plus, a pub that serves amazing Korean food. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Jamie Coelho, author of Rhode Island Food Crawls, Touring the Neighborhoods One Bite and Libation at a Time. Welcome back to Destination Eat Drink. I read your book, I loved it, and I'm so happy to have you back on the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you read the whole thing. And thank you for having me back on your podcast. It was such a great time last time.
It was. We had a great time. And we talked a lot about Rhode Island, but for a small state, it sure has a lot of great food and drinks. So I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that we didn't get to talk about last time. And I got to say, you said I read the whole book. I did. I read the whole book, and it's so up my alley because the whole reason I started this project, Destination Eat Drink, is because for me, the best part of a vacation is planning where you're going to eat and drink. How about for you?
It's the same for me. And I don't know what you use to find out where to go, but I found that just talking to locals or like people who've been in the area for a long time is the best way to go. So for me, this book is an example of that. Like, cause I'm a local in Rhode Island. I've been everywhere, over 14 years of experience working at Rhode Island Monthly magazine. And I feel like that's the way you should do it. Not always a Google review that would give you the best places to go.
Yeah, you asked what tools I use, and I use a lot of tools that you might expect, but when I'm looking for food, not so much for places to stay or for things to do, but when I'm looking for food, one of the first things I look for is there a local food blogger? Because those are the folks that really know their stuff, and I always look for them. The other place I like to go to is called Taste Atlas. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a website, but it has unique local dishes from all over the world. So there's a little tip for folks to try, and maybe on your next, maybe on your next one. Your book is all about food crawls. I love food crawls. It's my favorite way to eat. But I wanted to ask you, Jamie, because now you're the expert. What is it that makes a good food crawl?
Well, first of all, it's got to be a place where restaurants, bars, bakeries, coffee shops are in a tightly packed area where you can just stroll and walk from one place to the next for the most part. Some bigger cities and towns, you might want to stretch it a little further with a little drive. But what I did is I focused on the neighborhoods in Providence to start, where you could just literally walk down the street and stop at places along the way for a little taste of breakfast all the way to lunch, dinner, and then maybe some snacks and a light nightcap at the end to as a finale of a food crawl.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, is hitting these multiple spots. I call it the grazing method. I mean, if you go to Spain, it's like eating tapas, except you're doing it, in this case in Rhode Island. But I think one of the keys is you've got this whole thing planned out, and then sometimes you get to that first spot and you fill up on everything in the first spot and you're too stuffed to try anything in the second one, the third stop, or the fourth stop. That ever happened to you?
That's the hard part. That's why I call it a food crawl, because I kind of worked in little diversions in between to sort of like clear some room in your belly. So, for example, Hope Street was one of them. I know you read that one and enjoyed it, but there's like the Blackstone Boulevard that runs through that area. So you can, in between eating, go take like a mile walk and then maybe have a little bit more room for more food. So I definitely worked in a lot of diversions in each intro of things to do in between all the eating and drinking. Even though that's how I plan my vacation, it's always based on food and drink, but you got to add in some art, theater, some exercise, some sightseeing in between all of that indulging.
Good tips. Sometimes I forget that. Let's talk about the Hope Street Crawl. Hope Street is a street in Providence, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And you talked about some places that I was not familiar with. So tell me about some of your favorites on Hope Street.
Sure. So Hope Street is such an international food destination in Providence. It's a little tiny neighborhood. It's one street, and literally each side of the street is lined with amazing restaurants and local shops as well. Even the shops are food focused, which is kind of cool. There's stock culinary goods where you can buy cookbooks and like the most beautiful pots and pans and ceramic dishes, serving platters, things like that. And then across the street is an olive oil and balsamic vinegar shop where they import olive oils and balsamic vinegars from all over the world, mostly Italy and Greece and places like that. But in terms of the food, it spans from a beautiful bakery called Seven Stars Bakery, which originated here in Rhode Island. And now they have expanded to, I think, 7 different locations. But its first location was on Hope Street, the flagship. And they create these beautiful laminated croissants and pastries like scones and muffins and cookies and the most amazing sourdough bread. So my whole thing was to start your day off there with coffee and a light pastry, because sometimes one pastry just isn't enough. So that'll get you going with a light bite, so you have the longevity to go all day long. And then for lunch, we definitely want to highlight all of there's one Indian restaurant and actually an Indian grocery store across the street from it. So you can buy ingredients to cook at home. So you get inspired by not just snacks, and then you can go across the street and buy the ingredients to maybe make that dish that you tried there. And then we go along to, how I said you might need a little break. You can get an ice cream cone and go for a stroll down Blackstone Boulevard. It's a beautiful 1-mile stretch where it's lined by cherry blossoms in the spring and then wildflowers in the summer, hydrangeas, all the beautiful flowers with the season. And then you might be ready for what I would say second lunch. I'm like, you have first lunch, but you're going to need a second one if you're going to Hope Street.
I like your style, Jamie.
There's an amazing Japanese place called Wara Wara. So you could go there and get some, I would say my favorite thing there is the ramen, but they have dumplings that are pretty amazing also. So you could go light if you did not just snacks. I recommend the Thali platter, which is a little tasting size metal tray filled with all the little small tastes of many dishes, including like tikka masala, and they also give you paneer, things like that to try, but they're small portions, so you can taste a lot. And then at Wara Wara, you could just get a starter of their amazing dumplings. But if you want to go bigger, the ramen is where it's at. And then, of course, you got to get some Rhode Island style calamari, and you can get that right on Hope Street, too, at KG Kitchen Bar. That's the official state appetizer of Rhode Island.
Yes.
Because every state needs its own official state appetizer.
Right.
And you know what Rhode Island style calamari is. It's lightly fried calamari served with banana peppers and it's usually got a marinara type sauce on the side.
Yes.
We could keep going. There's bibimbap, a Korean restaurant, Ivy Tavern, and then there's Pizzico restaurant, which is more Italian and seafood based. So I recommend just getting, a dozen oysters at the bar there because you're going to have to keep going, obviously. And then we finish with some banh mi sandwiches at Lotus Pepper, which is a Vietnamese restaurant. So can you believe how it spans the entire world map on that street? It's insane how many there are.
That is a full day and a full belly. One thing that caught my eye when I was reading this chapter was the Ivy Tavern. I don't think the Ivy was there when I lived in Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell me about the Ivy Tavern?
So you would assume by the name Ivy Tavern that it's like all, tavern food like burgers or fish and chips. But the funny thing is you go in there and the menu has Korean specialties on it. And you wouldn't put two and two together, but literally it is the city's best bibimbap out of any restaurant. And they have a Korean chef in the kitchen making it. So it's pretty amazing. They do have burgers and they do have tacos, but they also have this amazing hot stone bibimbap, which what that is they have rice and it's cooked right on the bottom of the hot stone pot. So it kind of gets almost like it's like a caramelized texture. It's crunchy and then it absorbs the sauce a little bit better with that texture. And then they put a nice like gooey fried egg on top and then you mix it all up with gochujang and all your vegetables and the beef bulgogi if you choose that as your protein.
And a beer.
And oh yeah, you always need a beer. Definitely. It's a nice casual atmosphere.
When I was reading about the Ivy Tavern, it reminded me, I was talking to a gentleman about English pubs. And what's been happening is a lot of these little pubs have been bought up by Indian and Pakistani entrepreneurs. And so they're making Indian food and Pakistani food and serving with beer. And I'm like, this is genius and a perfect combination. And I think you got kind of the same idea going on at the Ivy Tavern.
Similar. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I studied abroad in London, so I know exactly what we're talking about. We used to always get tikka masala or something else with I used to like Strongbow cider in England when I was there, but you don't have that around here as much. It's a good combo.
I mentioned that I lived in Rhode Island, and when I moved there in 1990, the Fox Point neighborhood was kind of a dead zone in Providence. There wasn't a lot going on there. And, when I read your chapter on Fox Point, I'm like, wow, so much has happened in Fox Point. It's been so revitalized. What were some of the highlights for you in the Fox Point neighborhood, Jamie?
Well, similar to what you're saying, when I started my job at Rhode Island Monthly, I'm the editor-in-chief there. It had not quite caught on back then. It was, there was Silver Star Bakery, which is a Portuguese bakery. It's a Portuguese neighborhood. And it has been, that bakery has been there forever. And thankfully it's still there. But what I saw in the early years of my job at Rhode Island Monthly is this drifting from downtown Providence to the outskirts of the inner down city. So restaurants and bakeries and new businesses were gravitating to the outskirts more because the leases were cheaper and, it was, easier to find parking for customers. So we saw the first iteration of that was PB Donuts, which was this wild craze of a trend here in Providence. And they started with these donuts in all the craziest flavors you can imagine. From their most popular was Dunkaroos, based on the favorite kid treat of the 90s. And then they would just become more and more outlandish with the flavors that they would create based on white chocolate raspberry or like a cosmic brownie. The list goes on. Every holiday, they would come up with a gimmick, like the Buddy the Elf donut with like, awesome. It looked like spaghetti on top and yes. It had like all kinds of M&Ms and all these other treats. They even did a Thanksgiving donut with fried chicken and mashed potatoes on top. But anyway, people would wrap around the block for these donuts. And then we saw once they knew people would go to that neighborhood, other businesses were then brave enough to venture that way. So we saw Tallulah's Tacos open over there. And then there was Pizza Marvin in 2020. So it just keeps going. Now we've got Dune Brothers. We've got, I'm trying to think of all the other places. Aleppo Sweets is the Syrian bakery. They opened there and it just kept going. So my food crawl there, I wanted to make sure that I highlighted what we call the OG original gangsta restaurants. Of course, I mentioned Silver Star Bakery, which is the Portuguese bakery, but now we've got all these new businesses that have moved in and are thriving, and it just keeps going.
I got to get back to Rhode Island so that I can try some of these new places that I'm just not familiar with. And that's why I'm so glad your book came out, because, even someone like me who was in Rhode Island for so long, I'm like, man, all these places are so new to me. I never even heard of them. I mean, some of them, like Seven Stars and stuff like that have been there forever. So I knew about those. Mm-hmm. But I would have to imagine, with all of these hundreds of places that you've got listed in your book, some of them must have been new to you. Did you have any food crawl or town or neighborhood that surprised you?
Well, I wish I got down to South County as much as I'd like. So I had to do a little bit of exploring for that one. But everyone knows South County for Matunic Oyster Bar, obviously. I'm not sure if the news of what happened over there got down to you.
No.
But they had a catastrophic fire like last month, I believe, or a month and a half ago.
Oh.
And the thing with book publishing is my copy is due almost a year in advance of when the book comes out. And they spend about 6 months doing the layout and the photos. And so right before my book came out, there was this catastrophic fire at Matunic Oyster Bar, and the restaurant was basically destroyed. And it is still in my book, but in the time between a month and a half ago and now, they were able to open a tent right across the street from the restaurant to keep them going. So the state rallied behind them so that they could still serve the best Rhode Island seafood
right.
At the most iconic Rhode Island restaurant. But down there, like I would always just go to Matunic Oyster Bar, and I didn't realize how many other restaurants were down there. So actually dropping my son off at camp down in on my way down there, I stopped at Sly Fox Den 2 in Charlestown at the time, and the chef there is indigenous, and she had won the Best Chef Northeast award from the James Beard Foundation. And they serve a breakfast there that was made with foraged and fished and hunted ingredients based off the Narragansett. Well, she is part of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe down in Narragansett Bay. And that was the most surprising restaurant to me, is that I could have venison sausage with my eggs. And she served they were like a corn grit type of a side with it. So it was very different, something I had never tried. But unfortunately, in between the time my book copy was due and the book came out, she ended up having to close that restaurant. And now Sherry Pocknett, she is now serving her cuisine at powwows in the area. So you could still track down that cuisine by attending one of the powwows down in South County. And it's just like one of the most amazing dining experiences I've had. So I want to make sure she continues serving that incredible indigenous cuisine.
I hope if she wants to, that she finds a new place to open up, because that was such a great idea. But that's another tip. It's like, you wouldn't think about Rhode Island and powwows, but in the summertime especially, that is a super fun thing to do. And all people are welcome to go to these powwows and experience them. And I've been to many, and they are amazing. They are so
and you could try that cuisine there, which
fun,
is,
interesting, and great food too. It's so good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, let's talk about diners, because I think Gen Z goes, "Oh yeah, food trucks. That's this cool new thing." But no, these diners have been around forever. Rhode Island
started it.
Yeah, Rhode Island claims to be the inventor of them, right?
Yeah, so it all started in Providence. So we are the home of the invention of the diner. It all started with a horse-drawn carriage.
Cool.
And what's funny is this horse-drawn carriage started out serving journalists, newspaper workers, downtown Providence that were working into the early evening late morning, well, I'd say late evening, early morning hours, and there was nowhere for them to find sustenance at the end of their work shift or in the middle of their work shift. So there was a horse-drawn lunch wagon that started in 1893 in downtown Providence, and it evolved into basically people saw that trend picking up, and more lunch wagons came out to feed the hungry masses, and also the factory workers in the jewelry district in that surrounding area. So Haven Brothers is probably our most well-known diner. It's open up. That diner car is like one of the ones that it rolls into City Hall every single day, and they are open till 3 or 4 in the morning to feed everyone, even after the late night bar scene.
Yes.
There are other ones that have continuously operated, and if you do get to go to Haven Brothers, you've got to try a murder burger. And the only thing it's famous for is murdering your hangover, because if people are out drinking, that's the thing that they get to keep them going the next day. So
I remember so many late nights in Providence, going to concerts at the Strand or at Lupo's or even the Living Room. And then afterwards, you got to go to Haven Brothers and stand in line and get whatever. And right, it murders the hangover because you got to get that stuff in your belly to kill that hangover. It's so cool.
It does. I will say that I tried it once when I was in the state that necessitated a murder burger, and it worked. So as long as you got your Uber to take you home, you're all good.
That's right. That's right. So I don't know, Jamie, have people been suggesting to you, your book just came out, so maybe this hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to think that people are going to come to you and be like, you need to include this place or you need to include that place. And so I'm going to jump on that bandwagon here when we're talking about diners and say, you need to put out a volume 2, and volume 2 needs to include East Greenwich, and in the diner section, Jiggers.
Jiggers,
which I love Jiggers for their Johnny cakes. It's speaking of indigenous food, Johnny cakes are great.
That did come from that.
Yeah, I think Jiggers would be a great addition to volume 2.
It definitely would. I know. There were a couple walkable towns I wasn't able to include. I need about 100 more pages. One of them is East Greenwich, another one is Patuxent Village, and the third one would be Wickford, because those are all walkable neighborhoods that have great food. So I'm definitely going to they're going to have to commission a round 2 for me too. So You're absolutely right. But Jiggers is amazing because Johnny Quake's flint corn meal, what they use to make that is an indigenous corn crop, and it's the special flour that is used to make that Johnny cake. And Jiggers Diner is the place for that.
So are you a traditionalist with just butter, or do you put syrup on your Johnny cake, Jamie?
I like a little sweet, so I would put a little bit of syrup for sure.
Me too. Let's talk cocktails. I know you like a good cocktail.
I do.
What were some of your favorites that you included in your book?
Well, I would say in downtown Providence, there is a cocktail bar called Clementine, and it is actually owned by David Cicilline, who was the former mayor of Providence, and it's named after his grandmother or his mother. Well, I'm trying to remember exactly, but it's definitely named after his important family member. And they do a lot of like molecular gastronomy in cocktails. So you can order a drink there, and they use like a little bubble tool that creates a bubble over the top of the drink. And within the bubble is an aroma and a flavor. So when you get it, you pop it, and it basically like lifts this almost like a smoke-like aroma into your nostrils that you take in before you drink the drink. And it is amazing. And they also they use a lot of fruit syrups that they make in-house and herbal syrups that they create on the stovetop. And every drink is unique in all the colors of the rainbow. So you have to go check that place out.
So good. I love getting cocktails in Newport. When I go to Newport, I always have a Dark and Stormy.
That's rum with the little ginger beer.
Classic.
At the Clark Cookhouse.
That's the perfect
spot for that one. So
Yeah, definitely. Last time we were in Newport, we went to the Clark Cookhouse, and I saw they had something called a Newport water, which I had never
What
heard
is
of.
that? Oh,
And I'd never heard of it. And everyone I talked to who's lived in Rhode Island all their lives, they're like, Newport water, that's made up, right? I've only seen it at the Clark Cookhouse. And here's the thing, the Clark Cookhouse, they put the prices next to their food on the menu. They don't put it next to the cocktails.
next to the drink.
So I ordered a Newport water. It's champagne, Saint Germain, and Grand Marnier.
Wow.
It was tasty. It was good. But
Did
the
you like
cocktail was $30. I was like, oh my God, I see why you didn't put the prices on this thing.
That place is like, who's who of Rhode Island. You go in there, and I heard that the owner, he like can see who walks in the door by video, and he'll seat people next to each other strategically because he knows it's a place where business deals are made. And if he can orchestrate some of that, it's like, very strategic with the seating there.
Oh, cool.
But if you go there, you also have to get the snowball and hell dessert. It's such a show. It's like they light it on fire and everyone's looking at you, and you're like, who's that ordering that amazing dessert? So
wow. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And the bar is beautiful too. If you go to Newport, you have to go to the Clark Cookhouse, go upstairs into the bar. It's got the dark wood and all the boating and yachting paraphernalia. It's quite the atmosphere.
Yeah, they have like 5 different spots in there too. There's the top restaurant, which is a little bit more fancy, and you have to dress up like, with a jacket for men and a little bit more of an upscale environment. And then you got the midway bar halfway up, and then downstairs is like the candy store and there's sushi bar. So there's so many different little places within one restaurant where you can, check out the different vibes.
Yeah, they ain't letting me into the top floor.
Did you have your jacket handy?
No, I can guarantee that I did not.
Wow.
We just got back from a road trip in Italy, and talking to folks there, they were just laughing because we were using our Rhode Islandisms for talking about food and stuff like that. And one of their favorites that I remember folks really laughed at was when we called that little scallop-shaped pastry schfoodedel. They thought that was hilarious. But
so what is the proper way to say it? The flagliatelle. I'm trying to think.
Sfogliatella. Sfogliatella,
Yeah.
I think is how you...
I know. It is. It's like clam shaped,
Yeah.
I think a lobster tail is fairly similar in the way that but it's different. It's pastry cream inside that one. Wow.
Or ricotta cheese.
Ricotta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So good. But what I wanted to ask you about, because I thought that was funny, and then I'm reading your book. I come back and I'm reading your book, and you talked about Gabagool.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just a hilarious word.
You must be talking about the Federal Hill crawls in the book. So I did 2 crawls for Federal Hill because it's a neighborhood that is near and dear to my heart, and it is evolving every year. We're losing Italian restaurants left and right, but there are several businesses that have existed for 100 years or more on this street at Wells Avenue in Providence. And I want to make sure that they stay and they continue the course to keep delivering that sense of nostalgia to Rhode Islanders. And we're starting at Angelo's, which just celebrated their century birthday early this year. And they are known for starting during the Great Depression. Well, it was the Great Depression where they became famous for serving meatballs with French fries for free to people who are hungry. And it was all in an effort to make sure everyone had a good meal so they could keep going, even in the face of poverty. And they continue to serve their meatballs with French fries today, which is pretty amazing. And it's always affordable prices, no matter how bad it is out there with the economy. And then you've got across the street, you have Camille's, which is another restaurant that it's been open for over 100 years. I think it's about 110 at this point, but they're a little bit more upscale in their service and dining. It's a little bit more like white tablecloth, very fancy dining room. And then when you mentioned that pastry that we love in Rhode Island, it's Shallow Brothers Bakery right across the street. It has existed for, I believe, over 100 years at this point now too. And it was started by Luigi Sciallo, and then after he passed away, his 2 daughters ran it And they continued to run it until 2020, when all of a sudden the world shut down and the ovens stopped for the first time in all of those decades. They stopped the ovens and they thought that the bakery was no longer going to exist. We thought we lost it because they couldn't make it work in the face of COVID. But then all of a sudden, an anonymous investor came in and bought it up and fired up those ovens again and brought it back to life. And here it is. It's still here. It's still those wood burning ovens is still turning out breads, cakes, pastries, just the way they had been served 100 years ago. So I'm so happy we have it back.
Great bakery.
We are losing some places. So that's why I really wanted to focus on all of the Italian restaurants. And then the other food crawl is a market crawl. So I tell you where to shop for all the ingredients, from vendor ravioli to Tony's Colonial to dessert to pastiche too. And there's so many places in markets like that where you can buy the ingredients to cook at home.
But what is Gabagool?
Oh, Gabagool is the amazing, the Sopranos, that you got to go get your charcuterie and all of your prosciutto, and your Gabagool is one of the varieties of that, where you have to get it at Roma or vendor ravioli, and they slice it right there on the meat slicer, and you can't get it any place better than on Federal Hill. I diverted there because you get carried away with when you're just excited about Italian food. So
it is so good. I mean, when people come to the Northeast and they go to Boston and they go to the North End, which is fine. It's great. It's great. I'm always like, man, you got to go to Federal. If you want Italian food, go to Federal Hill. Go into vendor ravioli, where people are actually sitting in the cafe speaking Italian. I mean, it is legit the place to get real Italian food.
In Venda, they have the little coffee shop inside. And I remember the owner was Alan Constantino was sitting there, and he's usually surrounded by a dozen older men who all are friends. It can be a little intimidating. And I was like, should I sit on this side or am I going to cause a ruckus? But they're very welcoming, and they have so many stories to tell.
Yeah. Even if you're just eavesdropping, it's so much fun.
Yeah. You might find out where all the bodies are buried.
Oh, yeah, right. Back in the day. Well, Jamie Coelho, editor-in-chief at Rhode Island Monthly and author of Rhode Island Food Crawls, Touring the Neighborhoods One Bite and Libation at a Time. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
It's been great catching up with you. We'll have links to all your stuff in the show notes. I really encourage folks to pick up a copy of your new book, because even if you're not thinking about going to Rhode Island, it will give you so many great ideas about cool places to go and things to do. It's really a great companion piece to any kind of foodie travel, I think.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, that's Jamie Coelho. You can find her book, Rhode Island Food Crawls, at globepequot.com or wherever you get books. I've got a link in the show notes. And if you want to hear more with me and Jamie, check out my Substack. Members get access to the full interview, including a conversation about bathroom selfies on Instagram. Become a member of my Substack at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we are in Budapest for Paprika Ground to Order, a Langos revival, and why goulash is not a stew. Don't miss that. Until then, there's much more foodie travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a video in my Italy road trip series. This time we're in Ravenna for a layered coffee drink, a local pasta, and mosaics that are almost 1,500 years old. You got to see them. They are incredible. Watch that video by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. I also just posted a new story about my favorite sandwich place in Lisbon. The sandwiches are amazing, and it's just what you'd expect when you find out the chef is recognized in the Michelin Guide. Read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.